Let's go now to Greg Sheridan, foreign editor at The Australian. We want to talk about a couple of things. Most importantly, though, of course, the Prime Minister's trip to Indonesia. Greg, I think it's a very good look that the first time he goes overseas is to Indonesia. Issues there, of course, with the move of China through our region, the move now of Russia through our region. What do you want to see come out of this trip?
Well, Peter, great to be with you. Great to be with you. And I'm glad you're going to maintain your quota for senior, short-sighted, bearded foreign affairs commentators. Look, it's an important trip. It's right that the first trip every time should be to Indonesia. The Indonesia relationship is nowhere near as good as we think it is. It's not disastrously bad, but you know, Indonesia signed a strategic partnership with the Albanese government and so on, but that has not had any meaning. It means nothing. We're getting increasing defence cooperation, but we don't have a defence force to spit with. So, you know, there are very limited cooperation exercises we can do because we have such limited defence assets. Meanwhile, Indonesia joined the BRICS group, which is a group, you know, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, designed really to contain America, and it is having a very, very intimate strategic relationship with Russia, an increasing influence of China. So its strategic partnership with Australia means nothing. The economic relationship is still wildly underdone. We still have fewer students studying Indonesian than we did during the White Australia policy. Now, Albanese is right to go there, but putting some flesh on the bones of this relationship has not really yet come to fruition.
I'll get into President Trump's trip to the Middle East, but of course I want to make mention of the fact that after Indonesia, of course, the Prime Minister goes to Rome. He'll attend the inauguration of the Pope. Caroline just makes a point there. She contacted PMNC and they said there's never been another Australian Prime Minister in history go to the inauguration of a Pope. And I noticed all the way through the campaign, the Prime Minister was in and out of the Catholic Church. He had cameras follow him at a lot of major events. Now, you know, for a long time, Labor has pilloried people of faith. They went after Scott Morrison and very famously, for a very long time, pilloried Mad Monk and all other sort of terms thrown at Tony Abbott about his Catholicism. Fair enough for the PM, right? Fair enough. But then when he is sworn in, takes office, he makes an affirmation and doesn't want to hold up a Bible, doesn't want to swear an oath, which makes me instinctively say this is playing the politics here and nothing else.
Well, Peter, I wouldn't question the sincerity of Anthony Albanese's religious beliefs, and oddly enough, I don't want to verbal the PM on TV, but I've discussed this with him once or twice in the past when I wasn't so critical of his performance on defence, and I believe that his religious belief is quite sincere, and I think it's good that he's going to the inauguration of the Pope. It's not only a terrific opportunity to meet world leaders that he hasn't met yet, like Mark Carney from Canada and so on, so it's fully justified in terms of the diplomatic opportunities, but it is showing respect for the institution of the papacy and the institution of the Catholic Church. And remember, the new Pope, he voted in Republican primaries in Chicago. Not many Republicans have ever been elected Pope in the history of the Catholic
Bible,
Church over
why
2,000
no
years.
oath? Why no Bible?
Well, I have asked the Prime Minister.
There's a lack of consistency.
I've asked the Prime Minister about that in the past, in non-official conversations. They weren't interviews or anything. He has a view about keeping religion private and the separation of church and state and so on. Now, I don't believe that view requires you not to take an oath on a Bible. If I had to take an oath, I'd take it on a Bible in a minute. But I don't question his goodwill over that. But of course, Labor plays its politics very hard. But I'm not really in a mood to cry any crocodile tears for the coalition, because that was the worst campaign I've ever seen in the history of the world. And they weren't mugged by unfair forces. They just produced a shockingly terrible campaign.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have no taste for criticising the PM on matters of religion. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'll just make the point, if his faith was private, I wouldn't bring up the Bible, but all the way through the campaign, he took cameras into churches And as Kevin Rudd did, and I was critical of Kevin Rudd when he did that as well, I think that's when he crossed a line. Talk to me about this, the lifting of sanctions against Syria. We had some images, I think I've got to grab there now to play President Trump in Saudi Arabia just a moment ago. Have a listen.
After discussing the situation with Crown Prince Mohammed and President Erdogan of Turkey, I am also ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria to give them a fresh start. It gives them a chance for greatness. The sanctions were really crippling, very powerful.
Greg, what do you make of all of this?
Look, I think this is a very perplexing trip from the president. Very perplexing. Trump is a combination of good and bad. He does some very good things. He does some things no one else would have the guts to do. But there is now a weird instability about American policy. He's back and forth on China every minute. I think that played into our campaign. Very hard to take a sensible, hard line on national security for us if our big superpower partner is flip-flopping all the time. His organisation, his commercial organisation, has got 1 million deals going with all these Arab dictatorships. And this idea of taking the donation of a 747 jet from Qatar, which backs Al Jazeera and has backed Hamas, is just frankly unbelievable. Now, there is a case for trying to ease in the new Syrian government into the community of nations. There is a case for that. But you'd have to be very cautious. I mean, the new authorities there have killed a lot of innocent people. They're not as murderous as some of the previous Syrian governments. But Trump's speeches since he's been in the Gulf have had nothing to do with democracy or human rights or anything else. He likes a dictatorship which gives him a lot of money. And now, if this helps domesticate Syria, that's great. If, on the other hand, it just enables the latest batch of Islamists to come more quickly to power, that's a worry. And if there's alleged to be American investment going into Syria, that could be a force for stabilisation. That might be a good thing. But, you know, everything that Trump does at the moment is so entwined with his own personal interests that this is an extremely fraught, difficult moment for Western strategic policy, because it's impossible to be consistent because Trump keeps changing his position because it's all a negotiating position, and it's impossible to identify any values that go with it. Having said all that, if you can, turn the Gulf into pro-American actors and solidify them against Iran, but on Iran, Trump looks like he's going to get a worse deal than Barack Obama did, and he's notably snubbing Israel on this trip, although he's been very pro-Israel up till now. But honestly, it's a bit of a witch's brew, this trip, Peter, and it's very hard to interpret at this stage.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he has not publicly flagged that he would go to Israel for security reasons, and he'll, do what leaders often do. They'll drop into places that are a little bit more dangerous at the last minute, and the media is told at that time. Just on the luxury jet, I've got some comments he made today whilst he was on Air Force One. Let's have a listen.
The plane that you're on right now is almost 40 years old. It's much smaller. It's much less impressive as it is. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift?
Now, a few things here, of course. When he leaves the Oval Office, he's taking that plane. You wonder what other strings come with the aircraft. You wonder how, well, it'll be bugged to its eyeballs, but, there'll be bugs on there and things on there that they will not know and not be able to take out. It'll potentially have tracking devices to know exactly where the US president is at any given time. But, I mean, those comments he made about just the bravado of being on the tarmac and having the biggest plane in the lineup, I once heard a US Secretary of State, who will remain nameless, say, I'm just really embarrassed that our plane is so ordinary. And I just think this is ridiculous, this sort of stuff.
Yeah, Peter, you're 100% right. I mean, you're bang on. It's just incredible. I mean, if you put this in the script of a comic novel, I wouldn't believe it. So there is the United States, responsible for more than a quarter of the world's GDP, the most powerful nation the world has ever known. And it needs to go cap in hand begging to an Arab dictatorship which supports Hamas and supports Al Jazeera, in order to get a plane for the president to fly in. And then the president is so indifferent to even the most elementary rules of ethics that after he leaves office, he plans to keep the plane, theoretically not in his private possession, but in the possession of his own presidential library. So a gift worth about $600 million, 600 million Australian dollars. Now, he wanted, rightly in my view, to prosecute Joe Biden for some dodgy deals with China, where his son may have made $500,000 or something. This is just sort of in another ballpark. And then even at the practical level, apparently it's going to take months, if not years, for American security to fix up the plane, to make it habitable, properly usable as Air Force One. And the President of America has to fly in a plane donated by Qatar? I mean, I could understand that if he was the President of Sudan, but it's beyond parody.
Plane envy, mate. Plane envy. Plane envy, and of course the Boeing planes are made in Washington, in the state of Washington, in Seattle anyway. So it's just nuts. I'll leave it there, Greg. Thank you.